everyone, it's Olivia from Girlybunches, and in this week's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this star shaped, well, it could be a doily or it could be a blanket, as I've just putting in this picture here to show you that I've been working on this project and I've turned it into a lovely blanket. It's more of a throw really than a blanket. It's quite, I haven't made it too big, but you can make it as big as you want. Yeah, it's a really great fun project and it's great for kids, and it's a great blanket for babies too. I've made it in this cotton here, which I'm going to show you in the video, which means I've turned it into a nice little doily. So I'm really sort of pleased with how versatile this pattern is, and it's very simple. Once you've got the first sort of rows done, you get the idea, and the pattern just repeats and gets bigger as you go along. So it's super simple, very easy for beginners, and a great project for everyone really. But if you're a beginner, then you know you're making something a bit unusual again, which I think is always nice to do, isn't it? It's not just the same old granny square. So yeah, this is how I made this star. So I'm going to be using my 3.5mm hook, and I've got some double knit cotton here, and I'm using a slightly smaller hook because that's what works best for me. So use the appropriate sized hook for the yarn that you're using and your tension. I've done a video on tension, and I'll put that in a link in the description box down below, and I'll put a link, where is it? Around here somewhere. Yeah, very sort of a chatty video talking about how different hook sizes and your natural tension affect your work. So if you're having problems that way, do check that video out. So I'm just going to start now with a magic loop, and I've done an in-depth video again about that, but it's essentially just wrapping the yarn around your finger and pulling it up through and doing a slip stitch before you start working, and then that's your loop that you work into. And what we need to do now is we want to do 3 chains, which will replace our first treble, which you may know as a double, but I call that a treble because I'm British. And then I'm going to do 3 more chains because we have a 3 chain space between our 5 trebles that we're going to work in to this loop. So that first 3 chains replaces my first treble, and there's my 3 chains. And into that loop I'm going to do 4 more trebles with 3 chain spaces in between them. And the reason I'm using this cotton is because I want to make this into a little doily. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it just goes to show it's a versatile pattern. It can be a blanket or a doily. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me for recounting everything. We crocheters like to count, don't we? Okay. So there's my 5 posts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm just going to finish with 3 chains, and I'm going to slip stitch into that 3rd chain that I did at the beginning to replace my treble, which would essentially be the top of a treble. And there's my slip stitch. Okay, so I'm going to pull that loop hook out for now, and then I'm going to pull that tail end up nice and tight, and then that brings up that point together, that middle loop together, sorry, and that gives us our first round. So now what I'm going to do, put my hook back into my yarn, and I'm going to slip stitch into that 3 chain space there. Okay, into that 3 chain space, and each of the 3 chain spaces I'm going to do 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3 chains to replace my first treble, and that's 1, 2 actual trebles, so that's my 3 trebles, 2 chains, and then 3 trebles into that same space. Okay. So now I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to work straight into that loop there. I'm not going to do a chain to go over that post there, just work straight away into that next 3 chain space, 3 trebles, 2 chains, like so, and I'm going to come back when I get back round to here. So I've gone all the way around now, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch into that third chain from the start, which was the top, would have been the top of my treble, and that's joined that up now. So that's very cute all on its own, but now we need to start making this into that star shape. So we're going to now slip stitch into the next stitch along, and now we're going to work each side. So each side we'll work a treble into the 2 middle trebles, and then we'll repeat the 3 trebles, 2 chains, 3 trebles into each of the 2 chain spaces that we come across. But we're also going to skip the middle 2 trebles from our groups of 3 for each side. So we're not going to work into those 2. We're going to do a treble, treble, 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles into each space there, and then a treble, and then skip the middle 2. So let me work that. So I've already slip stitched into the next treble along, so that means I'm not working into one of those 2 middle ones. And again, 3 chains to replace a treble, and then a treble into the next one along, and then into my chain space, 2 chain space, I do 3 trebles, 2 chains, and 3 more trebles. Okay, so the next 2 trebles I'm going to work into, and I'm going to skip those 2 and then work into those 2. So the thing to remember is, once you've done your 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles, it's a bit tight in there. So you just want to make sure you pull those stitches back and that you do work into that first treble that's the next one along, because that's an easy one to skip. So make sure you work into that one. So that's 1, 2, and then we're going to skip those 2 and then work into the next 2 along. And that is starting to make our point and our valley for our star shape. The more rounds you do, as I showed in my picture at the beginning, the more pronounced the star shape becomes. So into our 2 chain space, we do 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles. Okay, so as you can see, that top of that treble there gets hidden a little bit, so make sure you pull back those trebles there and make sure you do work into that first treble next to your gap, and then work into those 2, and then we're going to skip the middle 2 and then work into the next 2, and we're going to do that all the way around. So if I just show you, starting to sort of get that star shape, and I'm going to come back when I get to here. So remember to skip the 2 middle, so that's the one either side of that first post there, and work into all the others and each of the corners. So I've gone all the way around now, and I've done my last 2 trebles into those 2 there. So remember, we're going to skip those 2, so I'm just going to do a slip stitch into that 3rd chain and join that round. Okay, so each round will be exactly the same. You're going to do 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles into every 2 chain space, and then you're also going to skip every middle 2 stitches on each long edge. So we've just slip stitched into that one of those 2 stitches that we're not going to work into. So you're always going to start around by slip stitching into the next stitch along. So that means you've now skipped those 2 stitches. Well, you've skipped that one to start off with, and then when you work the next round, you'll stop here and then skip that stitch there and slip stitch into the one that's over. Okay, so let me just show you one more time. So that's 3 chains to replace a treble, work into all of the trebles that are now available to you, and then again our 3 trebles, two chains and 3 trebles. And then remember to pull back those trebles there to make sure you get that first treble there to work into. You're not going to skip it. And then we're going to work along this long edge here, remembering to skip our 2 middle trebles. So not going to work those 2, going to jump over and work into that 3rd one along, and as you can see that starts to make that more pointed and in each corner. And again, same as each 2 chain space will be 3 trebles and 2 chains and 3 trebles. So I think you've got the idea now, so I'm going to come back when I get to here and I think we're done. So just finish that round, and again what we're going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that 3rd chain I did from the beginning, and that's where I'm actually going to end this because every round is now repeated here on in. And I'll just fasten my yarn off there and I'll sew in my ends when in a minute. A bit boring to show you that, so I won't. And yeah, that's it, that's basically it. So yeah, this is a blanket pattern, but it just goes to show if you use a different medium, so I've just used some cotton here and a smaller sized hook, I've now got myself a nice cute little non-sort of traditional doily, which I think is adorable. And as I show in the picture, which I'm showing to you now, that this, as you do each more rounds and different colours, which I've chosen to do in this particular instance, you do get this lovely star effect. So it's a great baby blanket, it's a great lap blanket, and I think it's also a great throw for a kid. You know, they can just chuck it down on the floor and play with their toys on it, just sort of something a little bit more comfy. And for them, if they're playing on the floor, or they can wrap their dollies and their toys up in it. I just think it's a great sort of versatile pattern, and it's also really fun. So you could, great project for a boy's room if you're struggling to make something for boys, because let's face it, most crochet things are quite girly. So I think this would be a fabulous project for a baby boy or a tom girl, you know, any kind of sort of something that people don't really associate as being girly, because you could do this in all sorts of boys' colours and it's a star. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this project. I love this project. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I enjoy that it's versatile, that I can use it as something like this doily here. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you did. There's a subscribe button down just there, or you could give me a thumbs up, I would really love that. Or if you could do both, that would be absolutely fabulous of you. And you can leave me comments or questions in the comments box down below. Please do check out the description box down below, because I put lots of good details, juicy details in there, and there's also some links that pop up around here as well. So yeah, see me in my next video, and if you've subscribed, you'll get a notification when my next video will come out, which will be every week, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. Hi everyone, it's Olivia from Girlybunches, and in this week's video I should be showing you how I did this half hexagon. This is a follow-up video to this hexagon video, which I've